Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lady Leadership Show. Now, super excited to have on the show someone that I know today and have certainly spent some time working with. And so I'd like to introduce you to Colleen Callandar. Colleen she has a track record in building brands, creating a winning culture, and building an environment that allows people to be inspired and empowered. Colleen has spent 20 odd years at the Suzanne Group as CEO of Suzanne and CEO of Sportsgirl, so two Australian iconic fashion brands, 30 years in retail, and most recently she's founded Mentor Me, a platform which Colleen mentors women for all different walks of life, and in her spare time she's written a new book. Welcome, Colleen.
Thank you. So nice to see you, Sam. And I always feel very old when someone says 20 years in the Sportsgirl Suzanne Group and then says 30 years in retail. But you know what? That's what it's been. So I'm just going to have to own it, really.
Yeah, well, look, that's exactly right, and I'm right there with you, Colleen. So, I think I started my career at a similar time, and yeah, someone recently on the podcast, when I said something about 30 years, she was like, "That just means old." But I think we can reframe that as experienced and with wisdom.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I'm going with that.
Now, you started, and so I have read your great book, Leader by Design. And in the book, you mention learning your business acumen at the dinner table with your parents. Give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was always very intrigued with people's behavior, and I was always very intrigued around business. And when I talk about my parents and my upbringing, it sort of frames a little bit of who I am and why I am, I suppose. So I'll share a little bit about that with you. So my father came to Australia from Italy when he was 4 years of age with his mother, brother. His father had already arrived, a couple of suitcases and a little bit of savings. And my mother came from a very different background. She was one of 12 children. She had an alcoholic father, and her own mother passed away when she was just a child herself, really. She was 21 years of age. So I had this father who sort of came here, had to work really hard and establish a new life, and my mother who became a nurturer very, very young in her age to care for siblings and myself and my brother. So I really credit a lot of who I am and what I do and who I've turned into and the woman I am to my parents, their habits and genes from both of their backgrounds. But I love to work from a very, very young age. And I used to go to work with my father on the building site. I used to work in my parents' canteen all day and then sit there and count buckets of money all night. And my father used to say, she's the canteen manager by day and she's my bank manager by night. And I was all of, 12 years of age by this stage. But I was really intrigued by business and how businesses worked. So whenever there was a business meeting at home, I would sit there like this little invisible child and just listen and learn. And I wanted to know about rents and wages and money and turnover and how you made money and why was it important. And so I just became this little sponge from a very young age of wanting to know all things business.
And I mean, I think that's great. And I think, people who say, oh, don't talk about money, I think that's not a great mentality. Talk about money, talk about how it's made, talk about, yeah. And I think like that hard work and that, kind of coming from those backgrounds, yeah, incredible.
Yeah, it was. And I watched my parents work really, really hard my whole life and worked really hard to put us through school and give us an education. I've got an older brother and a younger sister. And that was something that my parents had, not had the opportunity to have, was an education. So it was quite an interesting discussion when I came home at the age of 16 after spending a summer, my first real job outside of the family business, at the end of summer and made this grand announcement that I wasn't going back to school. I was going to drop out. I was 16, had finished year 11, and I wanted to go and work in fashion. And, so that was a moment of much disappointment in that moment for both of them, given that they had worked so hard to give me what they hadn't had, which was an education. But true to form, they are just the most incredible human beings, and true to form, both of them said, be passionate, love what you do, work hard and never give up. And that they have been the words that I've taken through my entire life, not just in business, but in everything that I've applied myself to.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's, did you know then, was it, you were passionate about fashion, you enjoyed doing it, you were good at it. And I think I read in the book, like your succession from, starting out to store manager to, regional manager or state manager, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, it was. I managed my first store when I was 18. That was the local Justine, or not the local. My local was Geelong, but I got offered the store out in Corio, which, for those of your listeners that know Corio, it was probably the shittiest little store in the portfolio, but I loved it and it was mine. And I worked through the ranks. I realized very quickly that people were my greatest asset, and to be a success and to sort of move up that corporate ladder, I would do that through results and through people. And I was quite a shy child. I wasn't an extrovert at all. I was quite the opposite. I was quite introverted. So I realized that I needed to get my results through, just sort of to be seen through results, because there was a lot of loud people around me and that just wasn't me. So I worked really hard, and I went from store manager to a larger store to an area manager. I was state manager at the age of 24 for Victoria and had 3 direct reports. So I moved up the corporate ladder really quickly. But I actually didn't do it for that, and I didn't even realize what I was doing it for. And looking back on it, what I was doing it for was each promotion and each next step I took in my career gave me the opportunity to inspire and empower more people. And I only realized that in recent years. I never realized that when I was doing it. I just loved what I did, and I was going for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But really, my whole ambition was around people.
Yeah. I love that. And you've written about that a lot in the book as well. And the themes I got out of the book were, hard work, confidence, kindness, which is an interesting one, which I want to talk about. And, just that I also picked up, the art of saying no as well. So, the book, for listeners, it really kind of takes you through each of those, principles like confidence, leadership, kindness, power of self, power of people. Talk to me a bit about the power of people then.
Yeah, again, very early on, I realized that they were my greatest asset. And I was, again, very intrigued on the way people behaved. Why were some leaders kind and others cruel? Why did some leaders create environments of collaboration and others environments that were very destructive? Why were some people greedy and some people generous? So I was very intrigued on the way different people behaved. And so I decided, again, very early on in my career, and the title of my book is Leader by Design, is that I wanted to become a leader by design. I wanted to become a leader for the people. I wanted to become a leader that I wanted to have. I wanted to become a leader that people would choose to follow. And there's a really big difference today, Sam, and I'm sure we've both worked with lots of different leaders in our times. And, there are a lot of people that work for leaders because they are the boss and because they are in a role of authority and power, and they tell people what to do. But the question is, would they really choose to follow them? And the answer, I think, in a lot of cases would be no. And so I wanted to be one they chose to follow.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's I've come across some of those people you're talking about, and it's a bit like, okay, if they weren't the boss, would you actually listen to anything that's coming out of their mouth, really? And possibly not. And I've talked about this in other podcasts. It's, values leadership versus, power leadership. So that values leadership of wanting to help people and wanting to help them in what they're doing, and that ego power leadership of kind of sucking it up and wanting to do it all yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Let's talk about hard work, because you've worked hard.
Yeah.
And so my question is then, to climb that ladder, really, how much of it, is really sort of down to that hard work. And, do you think, I often think that starting an hour early or starting an hour late or taking on a special project or doing something, that's what gets you kind of up the corporate chain, so to speak. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think very much in my earlier days, that's the way I approached it. Exactly what you're saying. I was the first in, I was the last to leave. I said yes to everything. I took on extra work. All of those things that would make you shine and get you recognized. And I wanted to be the best store, and then I wanted to have the best area, and then I wanted to win every competition. And I won the Kimberley Award, which was the most prestigious award at the age of 19 in the Just group. So I was really out to prove myself through hard work. So yes, absolutely. And not that I didn't work hard my whole life, but I think what you realize as you grow and evolve as a person, and particularly a leader, and you become more self-aware of who you are, that you start to put a lot of that emphasis on others rather than yourself. You start to shine the spotlight on other people. You start to see results for other people. You start to see other people grow, and that is really part of the joy of being a leader, I suppose. So again, it doesn't mean you don't keep working hard, but you just channel your energies, I think, in a different way as you grow and evolve as a leader.
Absolutely. And I think, you work out your boundaries as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And, that ability to influence the team. And so in the book, you talk about experiencing burnout as well.
Yes. Yeah, that was a big one for me. And I talk about that now as pretty much my gift. It was 2007. I was 36 years of age, and I had 3 young children. Macy was about 2 or 3, and Jake was 10, and Trent was 9. And I was general manager at the time at Sportsgirl, and I'd just been going and going and going. And I described myself in my book as a red Ferrari, and I still describe myself as a red Ferrari. But I was this red Ferrari that had never slowed down. I was going at 130 miles or k's an hour. I'd never put fuel in my tank. I hadn't pumped up the tires, and I hadn't pulled into the pits for a service. I didn't know any of those rules or boundaries. I didn't know self-care. And so I literally just hit a wall. And I remember walking in and saying to my husband, which is very much my personality, I'm very black or white. I walked in and said, I'm done. I literally had just hit burnout. And, lucky for me, I got talked out of that idea. And instead, I took some time off. I took 3.5, nearly 4 months off. And I put that red Ferrari in for a very well overdue service. I got myself a coach. I learned to say no. I put boundaries in place. I had never had any boundaries, none whatsoever. I learned what self-care looked like. I'd never had any self-care. I was a people pleaser, and I took care of everyone else, including my family, my people, my friends, everyone I could. And often as women, we do that, and we put ourselves at the bottom of the list. So it was probably the best lesson, as I said, in self-care ever, because it made me live my life completely differently. And now I work with a lot of women, and obviously through my book, my messaging through my book, I work with a lot of people to make sure that if they are on that train to burnout, they recognize the signs, and they start to make some of those changes so they don't end up in burnout town, because it's not a great place to be. We are not at our best when we're there. And we're certainly not serving ourselves well, and we definitely don't serve anyone else well when we're in that place.
Oh, yeah, look, absolutely. And I think, in those roles and in those senior roles, often you walk into the toilet and someone's wanting to catch you for 5 minutes, or if they could, they would actually, talk to you. I've had people talk to me outside the toilet stall. And so, how is that, you know, saying no? What are some of the rules that you put in place for yourself to navigate that when everyone kind of wants a piece of you?
Yeah, do you know, it's really difficult. And even to this day, it is still hard to say no, because I'm a natural people pleaser. It's just who I am. I got asked the question last week, actually, by another podcast. Tony Nash from Booktopia said, we were talking about burnout. And he said, so have you changed the make and model of that car? And I said, no, we don't get to do that. we are who we are. I am the red Ferrari. I just need to drive her differently. I just need to look after her differently. It's like being a people pleaser. If you're a people pleaser, you're a people pleaser. So we need to learn how to put those boundaries and how to say no. And it still becomes really difficult for me. I still am inclined to go, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can help you there. Yes, I can do that dinner. That's fine. I'll go to the other one as well. But we have to say no because it just doesn't serve us.
Yeah. And it is, and I mean, you're more self-aware though now.
Absolutely. And I think that's the sign. I was talking to someone today about, what makes a great leader. And I think self-awareness is right up there. We need to be aware. We need to know our values. We need to know who we are. We need to know our purpose. We need to spend more time on ourselves as leaders. And I believe we become more intelligent. We become more self-aware. We become more valued, and then we add more value to other people. And that's what a leader does.
Oh, look, couldn't agree more.
I was saying to someone today, leadership, we were talking about all of these things about what makes a great leader. And, I was talking about a whole lot of them. You've got to have strong values, and you've got to have a clear vision, and you've got to lead with courage, and you've got to put others first, and you've got to lead by example. And they're like, wow, holy crap, that's a lot of work. And I said, it is. It's a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
Leadership is hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah. I think, add to that, knowing yourself.
Absolutely. It's the number one. We can't lead anyone else until we're leading in our own lives. And that's in all parts of our lives. We just can't lead other people until we know who we are and how we're leading in our own lives.
Couldn't agree more. Let's dig into kindness and leadership. So this is something that I haven't, you don't see these words really going together. And a lot of, what we see in corporate Australia doesn't really represent itself as leadership and kindness.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. I think it's great.
It's a big one, and it's one I'm very, very passionate about, and it's one I've been living in for a very long time. And, I talk, Sam, about this old era of leadership, which is about dictatorship and directive and authority and power. And if you Google the word leadership, they're all the words that come up. I much prefer my own definition of leadership. And I much prefer words like kindness and authenticity and compassion and humility and trust and collaboration. And my definition of leadership is one life impacting another in a positive way. That's it. That's my definition. And I talk about kindness as the new superpower for leaders. And I really believe that. A lot of people believe kindness or associate kindness with weakness. I associate kindness with courage. And in fact, I think kindness is not only the new superpower, it's actually our new currency. And when I talk about that, I mean a currency of trading for loyalty, for high performance, for trust, for cooperation, for connection. And I believe the leaders that bring kindness into their organization are the ones that are going to survive and thrive. And I always have to qualify that by saying, kindness does not mean you can fly under the radar. Kindness does not mean we don't have honest discussion. Kindness doesn't mean there are no boundaries or rules. Kindness doesn't mean you can be an underperformer. Kindness doesn't mean any of that. Kindness means we have open, honest conversations. Kindness means I'm going to push you beyond where you think you can go because I know you can get there. Kindness is going to be, I'm going to set boundaries and guidelines and stretch targets for you because I'm being a kind leader. I want you to grow and thrive and shine. So there is a very big difference with the way this old era of leadership sees kindness and this new era of leadership. And it's, as I said, one I've been working in for a long time and one I'm encouraging organizations to move into. I believe people are our power. We have a lot of discussion around profit versus people or people versus profit, which one comes first. And I absolutely believe that people with passion and purpose equals profit.
Yeah. That's right. If you trust a leader, if you respect a leader, if you enjoy working with a leader, you're going to do better.
You absolutely give them your blood, sweat, and tears. And in turn, that helps the organization move forward. So they're the leaders people want to work for these days. And I think that it won't just become it shouldn't be something that's out of the ordinary. It actually should be the new rule. It has to be the new superpower.
I agree. Tell me about the mentoring program, Mentor Me.
Yeah, Mentor Me, I've got so many balls in the air at the moment. As I said, when I finished in my role as CEO at Sportsgirl in March 2020, I was going to take a year off. I was going to do some travel. I was going to spend some time at my holiday house in my garden. I was going to finish writing my book, Leader by Design, and COVID hit. So I was just very happy, in my own surrounds and loving being with my family. But what happened was I started to get all of these phone calls from a lot of women that I'd worked with, both past, and present, and also women I didn't even know, I'd never met before. And there was this real need for support. And I know the value, and you also know the value of having a mentor and role models and coaches and around you. And I've been fortunate to have that in my life, but not everyone can have that. Not everyone can afford them or even know where to find them. So I started Mentor Me Women and Mentor Me, because I do organizations that have men as well, but where women come together in small groups, and it's a 4-week mentoring program. It's 1 hour a week for 4 weeks, and we focus on a lot of the topics in my book. So week 1 is the value of values and know yourself. Week 2 is the value of purpose and leadership. Week 3 is the value of confidence, and week 4 is the value of self, which talks about life in balance, goals, and boundaries. And, when we think about some of those topics, we think, oh, they're pretty easy topics. Can I tell you, they're not easy topics because we don't spend time working on ourselves. We just don't. So they're all the foundations of the house. And we work and build really, really solid foundations so that we can build this amazing house on top that is going to weather any storm that comes our way. Because I promise you, there is a storm around the corner, always. The one thing we can be certain of is uncertainty. So unless we have those really solid foundations of who we are, and what our purpose is, and why we get up, and what puts a fire in our belly, and why we make decisions, life isn't going to be as fulfilling as we deserve it to be. So I work with a lot of women on a lot of those topics and challenges.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's great work. And, you do need those people supporting you who've done it before, who've had the experience, who can, give often, when you're in a difficult time, your emotions play into it. They can just, we tell ourselves loads of stories, etc. It's just having that person that's been there, done it before, and can give you some guidance and say, okay, well, here are some options.
Yeah, absolutely. And some strategies, and just, having that person, sometimes you need to hold you accountable, because we can very easily not hold ourselves accountable. So Mentor Me holds people accountable to make some change in their lives. It's interesting you talk about that story. We tell themselves, one of my weeks, as I said, of Mentor Me is the power of real confidence. And when I started writing my book, and when I started writing the mentor program, I didn't have that in there. And I actually didn't realize what a big challenge this was. And probably because I had my sports girl world and all of my beautiful sports girl people work for me for so long. And I talk in my book that I either had my confidence blinkers on, or I did a damn good job of building confidence with other people. But, it is a real challenge. The stories we tell ourselves, the fears that we have, the myths around confidence. So I work a lot with women, and there's lots of tips in my book on how to build real confidence. If we can have women, living with this real confidence, we are going to have more women at the helm in the future. And that is the goal.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's, it's understanding your value and understanding the value that you bring, and being confident around that. And, you can't pull your big girl pants on and, act confident, because, people can pick up on that sort of incongruent behavior. So it's about, building, those sort of micro steps, trying stuff.
Absolutely. Confidence, I talk about, is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger that muscle gets. So you're absolutely right. We can't fake confidence. There's these things around fake it till you make it. That's not a strategy. That is a very short-lived, very destructive way of living your life, because it is going to come unstuck at some point. So we don't need to, sometimes we might have to fake it, but that is not a strategy. It is about building and really strengthening that confidence muscle. And the more we use it, the stronger it gets. The more confident people we surround ourselves. I think confidence is contagious. You know, when we are around confident people and positive people, we feel positive and confident ourselves. And the opposite is also true. When we're around negative people, we start to feel negative and get brought down in that. So there's a lot of tips around building confidence in my book. And one of them is surround yourself with confident people. It's really important, and positive people.
Yeah, I loved the 2-page piece, real confidence starts with you. A confident woman uses positive words, 2 pages with all around confidence in the kind of middle of the book. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Cole, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Jump on my website, colleencallandar.com.au, or jump on my Instagram, which is again just Colleen_Callandar, or I'm on LinkedIn. So reach out. I run a Mentor Me 4-week program every month, and I also do one-on-one coaching with women, and I work with lots of organizations. And people from all different walks of life. People ring me and say, Cole, do you just work with executives? And I work with people from everywhere. I work with executives, I work with startups, I work with mums going back to work, I work with graduates. So people from all walks of life. We all have to focus on self. It doesn't matter where we are on the journey. There is, there is never enough time, and we need to focus on self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Cole, so much for being in the show. And all the best with the book. I highly recommend it. Grab yourself a copy, everyone.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and great to chat, Sam.
Cheers.
Thank you.